Welcome into the In the Money podcast. This is for Friday, November 1st, the Future Stars Friday at the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita. Tom Leach here along with Jim Goodman, Keeneland's Director of Wagering Development. We'll be back, of course, for podcasts for the Saturday card as well. But, Jim, we're going to start with the first Breeders' Cup race on Friday, which is the Juvenile Turf Sprint. And it is at 5 furlongs, not 6.5 down the hill. And so this is shorter than the turf sprint usually is, a lot of times at 5.5. So that's an interesting angle to this. So let's jump into it. Who do you like?
Yeah, I think, of course, they quit doing the 6.5 when they had the incidents there this spring, and we had to cross the dirt track to get back on the turf. So the 5 furlongs, I think, compromises the horse that I was going to pick, and that's Kamari, the filly for Wesley Ward. She came from way out of it to win the Indian Summer after a terrible start. She does show something in the Bolton's Landing at Saratoga. She did get out of the gate well, but there were only 6 horses in that race. So I'm worried about her getting trouble again and not being able to make it up in 5 furlongs. But I'm still going to give her a good shot. The horse that I picked, though, was Four Wheel Drive, the 9 horse, the other Wesley Ward, who I think does have more positional speed and was so impressive in the futurity at Belmont at 6 furlongs. Again, she's not... these horses, the European horses that run 5 furlongs, but the generally the U.S. horses, except for Encoder, have only run 5.5. So my 2 top picks, though, are the Wesley Ward horses. I would go a little deeper there. I think Chimney Rock, coming out of the Indian Summer, only got beat by half a length, also came from way out of it to Kamari. And then the 10 horse, Ali from Ireland, looks like... he's getting much better and improving 2-year-old, and Dettori takes the ride. Is always tough over here, and he does have some 5 furlong experience. He's actually 2 for 3 at the distance. So that's how it would go here. I think 4 Wheel Drive is probably my pick here. 5 furlongs worries me about Kamari.
I am thinking that the Europeans, somebody could be a major factor. This is a relatively new Breeders' Cup race, and so maybe it takes them a year or two to figure out the best type of horse. Ali is the one I settled on. I like Dettori riding. They've pointed for this race. He's only run straightaways, but I read that they have worked him around turns, left-handed turns. I look back at that Group 2 race in July where he got a 98 time form rating, and that's strong. So maybe somewhere around in there is when they decided to point for this, and everything between then and now has just been to get him ready to fire his best shot here. Not wild about the post position, but Dettori can hopefully compensate for that. So I'm going to make that one my win pick. Obviously, not going to get too locked in on anybody. I think Kamari is the one I like best after that one. Just a sensational race at Keeneland against the boys last time. The 4-wheel drive from Wesley Ward, I'm going to maybe discount that one a little bit. I'm not going to question the competition he's been facing. I think Kamari's faced much tougher schedule. Cambria comes out of a nice win at Kentucky Downs and could be an overlooked Wesley Ward to hit the board, maybe not so much to win. Among other Euros, I think King Neptune is interesting for Aidan O'Brien. This horse really made a big jump up in the last 2 races in his time form rating. So just off that angle, an improving horse I thought was intriguing. Alligator Alley, the 6, also a Euro, was favored over Ali last time. So I'm going to throw that one into the mix when we, or if there was a pick 4 or something. This is actually not in the pick 4, but this is a race where don't be afraid to take a swing at a price, I would think. But Ali is going to be my win pick. Now the 6th race starts an all Breeders' Cup pick 4. It's the Juvenile Turf at a mile for the boys. And I ended up on Decorated Invader here. Won the Grade 1 Summer Stakes last time and was wrapped up. Vitology ran a good third in there and came back and nearly won the Bourbon at Keeneland from a horrible post position. I think Arad Ortiz on this horse. Rode this horse first time out. Then the next time when he Decorated Invader won very impressively at Saratoga, Junior Alvarado was riding. Then Irad goes back on this horse for the race at Woodbine, suggesting to me that he really liked this horse and made sure to get back on it and maybe had a conflict that day of the Saratoga race. So that angle I thought was a little intriguing here, kind of helped me settle on a Decorated Invader. After that, I think Aiden O'Brien's horse, you got to respect off his record in this race. That's Arizona, one of two he has in here. I would consider the other one, Fort Myers, just on the angle of the other O'Brien. It'll be a much bigger price. Vitology, I think, has got a big shot for Brendan Walsh. Structor, Chad Brown won last time. Our Country has had tons of trouble in the last two. May just be one of those horses that keeps getting himself into trouble. I think it's interesting they're changing to Johnny Velasquez, and that could be noteworthy for this horse, and maybe gets him to get a better break and run to the potential that he's flashed. So I think that's definitely one I want to have on my ticket. Andesite I could be talked into. As I mentioned, Fort Myers. I'm going to go 5 deep when we get to the pick 4 in here, but Decorated Invader's my pick. How about you?
I'm going to go with Arizona. Looking at those races overseas and that 108 time form last time out in the Grade 1 at Newmarket, it was on a soft turf course, which he's not going to get at Santa Anita. So he's only run on good and soft. You don't get very many firm turf courses in England, in Ireland. So I'm not sure whether he's going to like the turf over here, but apparently he's the real deal. I'm going to go with him on a win pick, but I'm going to go deep in the pick 4 just in case the U.S. horses can handle him. It's amazing there's only one European in this field. Among the U.S. horses, I like Vitology. I thought the race at the Bourbon at Keeneland from the 14 hole and drifted in the stretch and just went all over the place and came. It was 11 lengths out of it at the start, and Castellano takes the horse back, ran right behind Piece of Cheese, who I'm also going to use here. I'm surprised these two horses are 10-1. I think a lot of people, the morning line guy must have looked at the buyer speed figures out of that race, and it did come back light compared to some of the others. But I thought it was a good race, and I thought Vitology was probably the best horse in the race. If he's improved off that summer stakes at Woodbine, then he's going to be right there with your horse, Decorated Invader, who I'm also going to use. I'm going to use Structor for Chad Brown, who won the Pilgrim at Belmont, and Andesite, the horse that ran behind him. I can't believe that this horse is 12-1 either. Brad Cox and Rosario on the turf almost won the Grade 3 Pilgrim, and Structor is 5-1, and this horse is 12-1. So if that price sticks, I think he might be worth a little bit at a win bet. But going deep out here, probably 6 deep in the pick 4, but Arizona is my win pick, 12 horse.
7th race is the Juvenile Fillies at 1 mile and a 16th. And where did you land in this one?
This one was tough. I tend to look at these races and I try to be unbiased, but British Idiom looked awfully good for Brad Cox winning the Alcibiades. She won by 6.5 and beat Perfect Alibi, who was went off as 2-1 second choice there. I think Perfect Alibi is one of those horses that started out really good but hasn't really improved on the buyer scale. So I think British Idiom has a lot more upside. Bast for Baffert after the win in the Chandelier. Wicked Whisper for Rosario and Asmussen coming out of the Frisette. Donna Veloce is the wise guy horse from Santa Anita with only one race, but that race was a 9 1/4 lengths maiden win, and she looked awfully good. So I'm going to stick with 5 here. I'm going to throw in Perfect Alibi just because she has been so consistent. I really don't think she's a good win pick. I think I would play her under if I were playing the race straight. But just in case, I'm not going to let Mark Cassidy and Irene Ortiz beat me out of a pick 4. So I'm going to go 5 deep here, but my pick would be British Idiom, the 4 horse for Brad Cox.
Yeah, that's the one I would like best of the East Coasters. Wicked Whisper, I think, may be vulnerable. I'm not sure what she beat. Horses that she beat last time out were beaten by horses that ran in the Alcibiades, like Perfect Alibi. So British Idiom's definitely going to be on my ticket, and I'm going to take a stand against Wicked Whisper. And otherwise, I'm going to lean on the California fillies. Historically, they've done very well when this has been run at Santa Anita. And I ended up talking myself into taking a swing on a 20-1 shot in here named KP Dreamin' for Jeff Mullins. This horse has 2 two-turn races, only horse in the field that does. And I watched the race last time behind Bast and Comical, and it's Baffert and O'Neill. So those should be good fillies. And this horse was running about third, faded, looked like it was going to fade maybe to the back, gets past, and then all of a sudden kind of figured it out in mid-stretch, starts running, closing up the rail on these other two, and on the gallop out, past them. And I just think at 20-1 in a race where I don't have a strong opinion, I'm going to use that one for a wild win pick. I'm going to use Bast and Comical, just the Baffert and O'Neill angles, and Donna Veloce in case she's that good, even though I'm skeptical of, 1 6.5 furlong start to mile and the 16th against much more accomplished fillies. And then I'm going to use British Idiom when we get to the pick 4 as well. Just she was so impressive last time, and she just might be better than these. So a wild swing for me with KP Dreamin'. 8th race, the Juvenile Fillies Turf, and they will run like the boys a mile. And I ended up on Cristal in here, the 7-horse. Thought it was interesting. The racing form says she was 9 wide last time, and that was in an 8-horse race. So she had a bad start. It was 9 wide in an 8-horse race. She beat Sweet Melania 2 back, and we saw what Sweet Melania came in here and did at Keeneland. And she's a strong finisher as a horse, and she has a strong finishing rider in Rosario, which I think is good. I heard Rosario's agent, Ron Anderson, on Steve Bick's radio show, and he seemed really high on this filly. He thought it's almost guaranteed. He said she'd be in the top 3. He thinks she's got a big shot. So I'm going to kind of lean on the horses coming out, or lean on her, and then the other horse that came out of the race where she lost last time, Selflessly, for Chad Brown, who's won this race the last 3 times and 5 times overall. And then the Natama has sometimes been a good prep for this particular race. And I'm going to use Fair Maiden, who just missed in that race, and get Drayden Van Dyke, local specialist, to ride. And then Abscond, who won the Natama. And then I'm going to throw in €1, and they have never done particularly well in here. That's Deya, if that's how it's pronounced, the 5-horse. If you wanted to add another European, you could consider Tango I think it's from the O'Brien barn. But really, I think one of those 4 Americans, Cristal, Selflessly, Fair Maiden, or Abscond, is going to win this, and I'm going to go with Cristal. How about you?
Well, I don't have a strong opinion here. I'm going to use 2 Europeans and 3 Americans, I think. That's Sweet Melania out of the Jessamine. I'm taking the stand here that Cristal beat her by a neck at Saratoga, and then 6 weeks later, Sweet Melania wins the Jessamine by 5.5 in a 14-horse field. So I'll put more stock in there than Cristal winning a 7-horse field by a neck back in the summer at Saratoga. I think Sweet Melania was extremely impressive, drew off in the stretch and won by 5.5. So I'm going to take her on top. I'm going to use Selflessly for Chad Brown. I'm going to use 2 of the Euros, Daya and Albigna, the Irish horse, for Harrington and Foley, coming out of a Grade 1 win on Art Day. I think maybe some people are overlooking that. She ran in a Grade 1 back at the Curragh, and then followed that up on a soft turf on Art Day and won by 2.5 in a 9-horse field, and that's a Grade 1, and she's 3 out of 4 lifetimes. So Albigna is my top pick for the Europeans. I'm also going to use Cristal, but I think Sweet Melania is my pick here, and if I play inside the race, I'm going to key her on top in trifectas.
And let's get to the last race, the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Juvenile at a mile and a 16th. Lost Maxfield, unfortunately, the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity winner.
Yep.
Was really excited to see him run in here, and he has been scratched. So that will leave it as a showdown between Dennis's Moment and 8 Rings in terms of the betting. What do you see in the Juvenile?
Well, I lost my single because I was going to single Maxfield here. And I almost singled Dennis's Moment. I think the work out there with Tammy Fox up at Santa Anita at 46-3 was probably the second best work behind the Maxfield's work at Keeneland. And Dennis's Moment has all the things going for him. He's undefeated when he's kept a jockey on his back. He obviously dropped his jock opening round at Churchill, but then came back and won by 19, and then had a battle in the Iroquois with Scabbard, and I think ended up well in hand and still got a 90 buyer. I think there's a whole lot more to tank for Dennis's Moment. So I'm if I was going to single, I would single Dennis's Moment, but I can't leave off Bob Baffert with a American Pharoah winner by 6 lengths last time out, and the one it's maiden by 6 lengths. So 8 rings is going to be on my ticket as well. It's going to double the price of the ticket. I really can't see anybody else here beating those two. I thought it was going to be a 3-horse race with Max Field a little bit having a little edge on Dennis's Moment, but Dennis's Moment has got a little bit of an edge on 8 rings, but I'm not willing to leave him out. I'd use Scabbard in the exotics. There's a big drop off, and maybe throw in the Japanese horse, the full flat, just for trying to get a price. But I don't see anybody else here that can run with those two. So I'm going to stick with those two when we get to pick 4. Dennis's Moment is my win pick.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to Maxfield being in here because I thought with Dennis's Moment getting the buzz that he does, and then Baffert, that you might get 3-1 on Maxfield. So now that's certainly going to affect the prices here in this race. I'm going to go on just lean on Dennis's Moment. There's 2 scintillating wins and a really sharp work there at Santa Anita. I like the fact that Roman sent him out there to get him a work over the track. 8 rings would be my next pick. Scabbard, the one you mentioned. Shoplifted. Asmussen sent him out and got a race over the track. And if you're looking for a price to maybe fill out a trifecta, maybe that one is one you would consider just by getting that race over the track. But we'll get to the pick 4 now, and I'm going to single Dennis's Moment because I'm going to go so much deeper in the others. Starts in the 6th race. I'm going to go 5 deep in the juvenile turf with Decorated Invader, Arizona, Structure, Our Country, and Vitalogy, 1, 2, 4, 5, 12. In the juvenile fillies, I'm going to use the 4 Californians plus British Idiom, so that's 1, 4, 6, 8, 9. In the juvenile fillies turf, I think you make a really good point on Sweet Melania, so I actually changed my ticket as we were talking, and I'm going to add her as well. So I'm going to use 4, 7, 10, 12, 13. That's Abscond, Cristal, Fair Maiden, Sweet Melania, and Selflessly. So 5 by 5 by 5, and I'll single Dennis's Moment, which will make it a $62.50 ticket on the 50-cent pick 4. What's your ticket look like?
Well, I spent a lot more if I'm going to use 2 in the last leg, but I may cut it back to just Dennis's Moment. But I went 5 deep in the first leg, 6 deep, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 12. Structor, Peace Achieved, Decorated Invader, Vitalogy, Andesite, and Arizona is my top pick. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 12. With 5 horses in the juvenile fillies, 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, Donna Veloce, Perfect Alibi, British Idiom, Bast, and Wicked Whisper. And I'm going to go 5 deep in the turf, 5, 7, 9, 12, 13. Dia, Cristal, Albigna, Sweet Melania, my top pick, and 13 Selflessly. And then if you want to keep it at $75, you single Dennis's Moment in the last leg. And if you want to spend $150, you throw in 8 rings. So let's just say single Dennis's Moment, and in parentheses, don't leave Baffert out if you got any money in your pocket.
Yes. If you've won earlier, be a little bolder.
That's right. That's right.
Well, best of luck on the Friday card, everyone. Just a really fun weekend, and so exciting that we'll have these races at Keeneland next year. We'll be back with another edition of this In the Money podcast to look at the Saturday card. And for Jim Goodman, I'm Tom Leach, and this is the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com.